So my name is VeliMattiJantunen. I come from Finland, in which I'm the chairman and Finnish APL community this year. Actually, I work for Statistics Finland too, but that's another issue which you don't. I'm not talking about statistics today. Actually, my presentation is about Finnish APL Keyboard. And just for the record, I remember when I was younger, the most careful thing or nervous thing I ever could understand was going in front of the audience and giving a presentation. Then several years later, I had to do the same thing, speaking with my English, with the international audition. And today I have the presentation with Adrian, so I think that this is still raising the arm. I had this presentation, a longer version, in this spring in Finnish APL Forest Seminar, which was held on C. The logic is very dim in this sense. And when Morten and Gitte saw this presentation, they asked me kindly if I could come here and give the presentation. And then it sounded a very good idea. Now I'm not quite sure. But the idea or the reason for this presentation was that I had a little bit different approach to the Unicode keyboard than Adrian had his own presentation and material. And to be able to compare these approaches, it would be nice to have us both to present our ideas. To make a good presentation within this nervousness, it's good to have a PowerPoint presentation which loaded with nice pictures. So people remember those pictures, but they don't remember me, hopefully. This is the only reference to my work. Sometimes it looks like this. I don't have pointy head boss. That's the difference. Okay. It all started with one email message I got from Morten. They were designing the version 11.1 Dyalog interpreter, in which they needed a new keyboard definitions for Finns. And because I had been involved in that process earlier, I started the design, and there were he asked for 3 different keyboard layouts. One for the traditional unified keyboard, a newer one without control combinations, and then totally new approach in which he said that might be a universal keyboard for the future. So we started this kind of small project of our own in Finnish APL, in which the idea was that to design a new keyboard, new APL keyboard for the newcomers. The old hacks still can use the old keyboard. They know where the APL glyphs are, so there's no point of trying to learn old dogs' new tricks. But the point is that if we got newcomers in APL field, the new keyboard should be easy for them to understand. And of course, everything came from Unicode. It made it possible to design this kind of keyboard. And there were other things involved. For example, we didn't want it to be vendor version, APL version, or even application specific. It should be an APL keyboard meant for every APL in the world. Finnish speaking APL in the whole world. And one nice thing about which we could play around was a Windows Microsoft Keyboard Layout Creator, in which we could make new keyboards and test them, all the ideas we had, and make new versions and play around. And some strict rules we realized that there are only Alt-GR, which means the right Alt key, and Shift with Shift combinations were allowed for the new keyboard design. This means that the standard Windows shortcuts are left intact, for example, Control-C, and which means that you could use the same keyboard which in every application that recognized Unicode. So having the same keyboard for each and every application would be a heaven sent. Short glimpse to the history. This is the keyboard with which I started my APL life. IBM's APL2 keyboard. Physical keyboard, 2 states, text and APL. I still can remember all the positions of the APL glyphs on that keyboard. There are people who have started with SharpAPL, almost the same idea, same design, a little bit different glyphs. And from this address you can find more APL keyboards and other keyboards too. If you use Windows enough, this is something that will sooner or later come out. We changed from mainframes to Windows, which means that I changed from APL2 to Dyalog APL. Of course, there was APL Plus somewhere in between, but let's not talk about it. And there was this unified keyboard for Dyalog APL, which I think started from Kim Andreasen, who made that keyboard for Danes. Then that keyboard was translated to Finns, and I was the latest in the food chain to edit that model for the Dyalog APL. And as you can see, it's meant for seasoned APLers who actually know where to seek for a special glyph. And I stuffed the keyboard with almost everything that was available in APL, Dyalog APL's 256 possible characters there. When I kept on asking people how they use this keyboard, I was astonished to see that there are a few Finn APLers who even knew that some glyphs existed on the keyboard. They knew that if the character is somewhere there, but if I press enough keys, I will find. Eventually, for example, find. And guys were really happy to tell me that if you take some part of quad AV and pick a character from there, then they can get their rare glyphs from there. So eventually this design was outdated and not usable at all. And there were other things too. Yeah, we could not use control shortcuts on different applications. For example, Control C is not available in version 11 or earlier versions on Dyalog APL. And dead keys, which are important in Finnish keyboards. Who knows what dead keys are? Yeah. Dead key means it's a specific in Finnish or in many different keyboards. Not in UK keyboards. I don't know about US. I don't think you don't have them either. Yeah. You should change them. But the idea is that you press dead key, then you get, for example, accent, and then you press, let's say, accent aigu and A, you get accent aigu A letter there. Or diaresis and A, you get A letter, and so on and so on. There were these old guidelines, and now I'm referencing Adrian's job. Actually, Adrian had these talks a year ago in Princeton, and couple of good articles about how to design a keyboard. Of course, I ran this text and realized that Adrian has already designed a keyboard for Finns. That was really a bold task to do. But the idea is pretty clear that if you make a keyboard, you should make it as logical as possible. So if there's on the key there's visible appearance of the symbol, put it there. And if you don't have any visible appearance, then some mnemonic. If there's no mnemonic, put the rest where they might go, where there's room for them. And we like to keep it simple. So during the process, we realized that these are really important for newcomers. So the rules must be clear, they must be usable, and they should be visual, not remembered by names of the functions. And I think that's really there's a distraction between mine and Adrian's thinking. That Adrian put, for example, times to T, because times it starts with T in English. It doesn't start with T in Finnish. Surprise. And then there are other things too, because the guys told me that they were pressing the keys somewhere in the vicinity of the symbol. There must be that find, for example. So that might be a good idea, that if you know the direction of the key, its relative should be somewhere there in there. So vicinity and grouping are some points worth using. Then we became very bold. What are the symbols we'd like to include in the new APL keyboard? We started with base APL, something that's been used in every APL interpreter throughout its history. The colors mean that the blue ones are already on the keyboard, and the green ones are something that we'd like to have there. There are some glyphs that are used in Dyalog APL, some in APL2, and some in very rarer occasions. And because in Adrian's keyboards we found some interesting glyphs too. If they can be put on the keyboard, that's okay. And other symbols too, not only APL symbols, but the other symbols that might be used on the same keyboard. Yeah, and here's Adrian's proposal for the poor Finns. When I showed this to my fellow Finns, that they were they agreed that I should design a new one. Because we didn't find any logic in this regarding the Finnish language. Sorry to say that, but it was a nice proposal because we could do better, I think. So this is the Finnish keyboard. Actually, this is Finnish and Swedish keyboard as much as I know. So it's QWERTY keyboard. The base characters are in the same positions that in UK and US keyboards. Special symbols are scattered within a different logic. And then we have those on the top right, two characters which are grayed. There are 5 dead keys. So we can have lots of symbols with this keyboard, and some of those needed characters are already there. And the dead keys are those with which you can get some exotic national characters for Portuguese and French and others. So, starting the process was that beginning with the Greek characters. Omega was easy, Rho was easy, Alpha was easy, and Iota was easy. And then I've always thought that Delta is capital Greek characters. And there was other rule was going with the same design, was that underlined characters should be on the same key behind the shift. Looks nice. Yep, we are coming to it, because as you can see, there's some propelhead on Microsoft or whatsoever carves an euro in E key. So, Algier E is already taken. What to do with it? What to do with epsilon? And there were 2 possible designs. Leave a euro there trying to find place for epsilon, or make an omelette. Which means that we designed to put epsilon and underlined epsilon in E within the same rule. The rule is simple there. Because if you look at the top line, you can see there are currencies there. There's pound, there's dollar, and within each and every keyboard there's euro. It's not carved on each and every Finnish keyboard, but it's there. You can get Algier 5 gives you euro sign, so it's present there already. And then there were other issues there. This is a nice one. I have not met a single Finn who knows that Algier M gives you the me letter. I've been asking several people. I know that in German keyboard that the me is carved on the keyboard. In Finnish keyboards it's not there, so people don't know it. It's a micro prefix. That's its usage. When putting those, then the next decision was to find symbols that look really the same as on the keyboard. And there we go. Union goes for U, and it's even in Finnish. It's unioni. Yeah, nice that you took the same name in English. Outer product is very rounded. Let's put it in O. Rank and hoof, rank and upon or po and hoof, they resemble pretty much Finnish O with diaresis. We have the sound O which is pronounced O, and with diaresis it's Ö. And these resemble Ö letter pretty much. So it's natural place for them. Modulo goes there with the broken style, for example. Nice decision was to put the multiplication because it's small x in X. And its counterpart is division, so they fell in the same key. Enclose is small c, and or is small v. I think the logic is very easy to understand here. These were pretty easy, and then we have visual association was the next step, to take those characters that resemble so much what's already on the keys. That means reductions, because the scans or dashes and what slashes those were, backslash, they are scattered on the Finnish keyboard. They are not on the same key. But putting those counterparts on the same key was really natural there. And then, for example, percent and transpose go to key 5. Logarithm goes to the key 4 because there's this. That symbol is called san or buck in Finnish. It should be currency symbol, but no one is using it for currency purposes. I don't know. It's an old symbol in the keyboard. No one is using it, but it must be there. And the other logic is, I think, a little quite understandable here. The keyboard is becoming stuffed. Then we come to the mnemonics side. And with mnemonics, there's visual mnemonics, that there are visual mnemonics and then textual mnemonics, which help. And I don't know why Adrian Falkov didn't put take to T. Because if I look carefully, the small t, it resembles up arrow. And to be honest, most of the Finnish APLs call the function not in Finnish otto, but they talk about take. So it starts with T already. And because up and down arrows are there, you could put sorting on the next key. That goes pretty well. And the minimum and maximum to M, because they are minimi and maximi in Finnish. 2 and yeah, there was some discussion. There were different points of view, but we decided to put them there because I come to it a little bit later to L. Another thing was match and natch that could be nicely put on M too. And Japanese currency could be put on 6 because there were 3 currencies already present, so why not use that there? So we are coming to the neighbors, the same direction. And for example, there were these angle brackets, so you could put those greater, less or equal and greater than equal there. And actually, if you look from this position, this symbol, it looks like Z. And Adrian had a nice idea about B. It was Boolean, so we had to all the 4 Booleans close to each other. And the same goes with functions. And P is, for example, is rounded, and there's O in the neighborhood. Then we had lots of symbols that we had no exact visual clue about them. But there were these APL traditions, and if there were no reasons, no rules found out where to put them, one good idea is to put there where they have been already. So diamond goes to up left, or paragraph key, and so on and so on. L, if you take this much off this symbol, you can see L there. And you can see N here, for example. And actually Y, if you look at the capital Y and the grade down, Y is well hidden there behind that. And those execute and format, they are like small A letter or A with diaresis. It's becoming a little bit stuffed. And because I started from APL2, I like to have these APL2 characters from the mainframe memories. Just after record, I think that this interesting looking symbol there might be a good candidate for fork. But that's up to Morten to decide. Then Adrian's symbols and MicroAPL symbols. In MicroAPL they have these component file functions, and they fall in the same category here, so they are up arrows and down arrows and directions. And nice symbols to have, even though if you don't have Rowan installed, are root and sum and product symbols, of course, on the keyboard. You can use this keyboard for other purposes than in APL. Some other symbols I don't know where they use. For example, target. I named it as target. Perhaps it should be Viking APL challenge symbol. Throwing with an axe. But still, there were place for them. And the idea is that this is not carved in a stone. If we have to change the layout, it's possible. So this symbol may stay or may go away. But if you remember, when we started, we had lots of symbols that we'd like to have in our keyboard. Lots of symbols that would be nice to have. When making applications, I know that when some person comes in and says, it would be nice to have this or that, the bell starts clinging. And it would be nice to have lots of these special characters. What shall I do with them? One idea was that we could ease and control in a way that control could be used, for example, for number keys and other keys, so that we might have room for extra 10 or 20 symbols. But Microsoft surprised me. I could enhance the dead key functionality, so that those rarely needed keys are still available with the Unicode keyboard with careful design. Of course, the default dead keys must be still as the people have known how they function, which, let's see what happens. Yeah. I have met this once. I wanted to remember. Okay, more characters. Just to know that if you are awake. So with these dead keys, we designed new rules for them. Accented keys, and all those which are in red are new design. For example, Hungarian which has the latest one, which has those tilted or accented diaries is available in Finnish keyboard nowadays. And new rules for getting some special characters from these characters pressing this dead key is possible now. And getting character and chevrons, for example, we call these hats. So hat S, for example. And then we could have some APL symbols too, from diaresis. And other rules there. For example, the mu is available. What is more, I could make my own dead keys. If you remember still those APL2 characters there, I designed 2 APL dead keys. Pressing these, I-beam gives me under or over lines. I can get the underlined alphabet still. If in the future they become circled, that's okay. And the other key gives me bunch of quoted symbols. So here's the final result. This design gives access to approximately almost 400 different character symbols, glyphs. And APL characters, I lost my count, but it was something approximately 190. I think it's enough for even tomorrow's APL to find new operations. And when comparing this layout, this was not purpose, but when I compared it, I found out that 15 glyphs were left unmoved from the original layout. So perhaps this was a good design. Still remember this Adrian's proposal. It's a little bit different comparing to where we came out. When I sent this FinAPL version to Adrian, his comment I still remember. So it depends on which side you look at the keyboard. Okay. Then after designing, I had made an extra work trying to figure out if the keyboard is usable for the user's point of view. And I didn't know how to do that, so I gathered over 200 different workspaces from APL Plus, from mainframe, converted from mainframe, and all the Dyalog workspaces I had. And I ran some kind of frequency tables in which I tried to figure out which glyphs are mostly used and which are not. So this picture should show you that most of the characters are non-shifted, which are really very, very often used. And for example, there was discussion, should we put small squid non-shifted and the capital quad to the shifted shift L. This was the we decided to leave it as it is because quad is so much used nowadays in APL. The darker the character, the most used. And actually, this is just arbitrary classification. Those which are dark are really much used, and those which are really, of course, I didn't have any MicroAPL workspaces, so that's why those component file functions, for example, are quite dim. But it gave me just some hunch, some idea that what had happened if the design had been successful in this sense. And the workspace keyboard is there up and running, and all the people I've been. Yes, this is something that trying to control or trying to escape. This was exactly my feeling when designing this keyboard. I wasn't the only person doing this job. For example, Kimmo Linna was testing pretty much. That guy who is, I think nowadays today he is flying from in Finnish, he's Finnish pilot and APL programmer, and he doesn't know which one is hobby and which one is work. So he tested it like maniac, and a couple of other persons who knew nothing about APL. We just gave them the keyboard to test, and told them that try to find these and these figures from the keyboard, and they managed to do that. So we think that this design was somehow successful. And if there are any Swedes on the audience, you can borrow this layout for your purposes too, because we have the same keyboard design.